In a prosperous region where castles dotted the hillsides and wealthy lords ruled over vast estates, there lived a nobleman known throughout the land as Monsieur Bluebeard. He had earned this unusual name because of his distinctive appearance, a thick beard that grew in a peculiar dark blue-black color that seemed almost unnatural in certain lights. He was immensely wealthy, owning multiple castles, vast lands, fine horses, and treasures beyond counting. By all outward appearances, he should have been one of the most eligible gentlemen in the entire kingdom. Yet there was something about Bluebeard that made people uneasy. Perhaps it was the coldness in his eyes that never quite matched his polite smiles. Perhaps it was the way servants in his household always seemed nervous and afraid. Perhaps it was the whispered rumors that circulated through the villages, stories that no one could quite confirm but that everyone seemed to know. Most troubling of all were the questions about Bluebeard's previous wives. He had been married several times before, and each wife had mysteriously disappeared. When asked about them, Bluebeard would give vague answers about illnesses or departures, but he never showed genuine grief, and no one had ever seen graves or received word that these women were living elsewhere. Despite these concerning signs, Bluebeard's wealth and status gave him considerable power and influence. When he set his sights on finding a new wife, families would be both flattered by his attention and deeply uncomfortable with his interest. In a nearby town lived a widow with 2 daughters, Amélie and Marie. They were not nobility but came from a respected family that had once known better times. The widow worked hard to provide for her daughters and to give them the education and refinement that might help them make good marriages. Both girls were beautiful, intelligent, and kind-hearted, raised to be strong and independent thinkers. Qualities their mother valued even more than the accomplishments that society deemed important for young ladies. When Bluebeard began paying attention to the family, hosting them at one of his magnificent estates, and showering them with luxurious hospitality, the widow felt deeply conflicted. The match would secure her daughters' futures financially, but something about Bluebeard troubled her maternal instincts. She watched how he behaved, listened to the rumors, and worried about what she couldn't see beneath his polite exterior. Amélie, the elder daughter, shared her mother's concerns. "There's something wrong about him, Mother," she said after one of Bluebeard's visits. "I can't explain it exactly, but I feel it. The way the servants flinch when he approaches, the way he watches us like we're possessions he's evaluating, the fact that he never speaks of his former wives with any affection or sadness. And that castle, it's beautiful but it feels cold, lifeless, as though joy has been deliberately kept out." Marie, the younger daughter, was more inclined to give Bluebeard the benefit of the doubt. "Perhaps we're being unfair," she suggested. "He's been nothing but courteous to us. Yes, he's a bit formal and reserved, but many wealthy gentlemen are. And think of the security this marriage would bring, not just for whoever marries him, but for all of us. Mother wouldn't have to work so hard. We could live comfortably. Shouldn't we at least consider it?" The widow sighed heavily. "Marie, my dear, I want security for you both, but not at the cost of your safety or happiness. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong, no matter how attractive the exterior package might be." Despite these reservations, the pressure to accept Bluebeard's suit grew stronger. He was persistent in his courtship, particularly of Marie, perhaps sensing that she was more susceptible to persuasion than her sister. He invited the family to spend a week at his grandest castle, where he entertained them magnificently, showing them luxuries they had never experienced. Slowly, Marie's resistance began to weaken. The beautiful gowns, the fine foods, the promise of a life without financial worry. These things began to outweigh her initial uneasiness. Finally, Marie agreed to marry Bluebeard. Her mother wept, not tears of joy but tears of fear she tried to hide. Amélie hugged her sister tightly and whispered, "Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll trust your instincts. And promise me that if anything ever feels wrong, you'll find a way to let us know." Marie promised, though she told herself her family was worrying needlessly. Surely Bluebeard was just misunderstood. Surely the rumors were exaggerated. Surely everything would be fine. The wedding was grand and elaborate, but those who attended noticed it lacked genuine warmth or joy. The bride smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. The groom was courteous, but his courtesy felt mechanical. And when the celebration ended and Bluebeard took Marie away to his most remote castle, the one where he spent most of his time, many guests left with heavy hearts, wondering if they would ever see the young bride again. For the first few weeks of marriage, Bluebeard was a model husband in terms of material provision. He gave Marie beautiful clothes, jewels, and anything she desired. He allowed her to explore most of the vast castle, and to use the gardens and grounds as she pleased. But Marie noticed troubling things. Bluebeard was controlling about where she went and when. He dismissed servants who seemed friendly to her. He discouraged her from inviting her mother and sister to visit. And most disturbing of all, he was cold and distant emotionally, treating her more like a valuable possession than a beloved wife. Marie began to feel like a beautiful bird in a golden cage, well-fed and protected, but trapped nonetheless. She missed her family terribly, and began to realize that her mother and sister had been right to be concerned. But she told herself to be patient, to give the marriage time, to hope that Bluebeard would eventually warm to her. Then one day, about a month after their wedding, Bluebeard announced he had to travel on urgent business to a distant part of his holdings. "I'll be gone for at least 6 weeks," he told Marie. "Perhaps longer. You'll be mistress of the castle in my absence. You may entertain yourself however you wish. Invite your family to visit if you like, explore the grounds, enjoy all the castle has to offer." He handed Marie a heavy ring with many keys. "These keys open every door in the castle," he explained, pointing to each key in turn. "This one opens the main gates, this one the treasure room, this one the jewel chamber, this one the armory. You may open any of these doors and explore to your heart's content. But this small golden key," he held up a delicate key that gleamed with an almost sinister light. "This key opens a small chamber at the end of the east corridor in the basement. You must never, under any circumstances, open that door. Do you understand? Never." Marie felt a chill run down her spine. "Why? What's in that room?" Bluebeard's expression hardened. "That is not your concern. Simply obey me in this. You may have freedom in everything else, but that one room is absolutely forbidden to you. If you disobey me in this single matter, my anger will be terrible beyond your imagination. Do I make myself clear?" Marie nodded, though her hands trembled as she took the keys. The moment Bluebeard left, she felt both relief at his absence and fear about what he was hiding. She immediately sent word to her mother and sister, begging them to come stay with her during Bluebeard's absence. When her family arrived, Marie showed them throughout the magnificent castle, opening door after door with the keys Bluebeard had given her. They saw rooms filled with gold and silver, chambers displaying priceless artwork, libraries containing rare books, and wardrobes full of the finest clothing. The wealth was staggering, but it all felt hollow and cold. Finally, they stood before the door at the end of the east corridor in the basement, the forbidden door that the golden key would open. Marie stared at it, feeling drawn to it, and repelled by it simultaneously. "Don't open it," Amelie said immediately, her voice firm. "Marie, I know you're curious, but please don't. Whatever he's hiding, it's nothing good. A man who forbids his wife from entering a room in her own home is keeping dangerous secrets." But Marie felt torn. What if he's testing me? What if this is about trust and obedience? What if there's nothing terrible in there at all, and he's just seeing if I can follow his instructions? Her mother shook her head sadly. "My dear daughter, a good husband doesn't test his wife with cruel games. A good marriage is built on mutual trust, not on one person's absolute obedience to arbitrary rules. If there's truly nothing concerning in that room, why make such a point of forbidding you to see it?" But curiosity and a need to know the truth warred within Marie's heart. Finally, against her family's advice, she made a decision. "I have to know," she said. "I have to know what he's hiding. I can't live in this castle, married to this man, without knowing the truth of who he really is." With trembling hands, Marie put the golden key in the lock. Her mother and sister stood behind her, their faces pale with fear. The key turned smoothly, and the door swung open to reveal a dark chamber lit only by a small high window. At first, Marie couldn't process what she was seeing. Then, as her eyes adjusted to the dim light, the full horror became clear. The room was a chamber of death, the walls were stained with blood, and hanging from hooks along the walls were the bodies of Bluebeard's previous wives, all dressed in their wedding gowns, all murdered and displayed like trophies. Marie screamed and stumbled backward, dropping the golden key in her shock. Her mother and sister caught her, and all 3 women stood frozen in horror, staring at the gruesome evidence of Bluebeard's true nature. These were the missing wives, the women who had mysteriously disappeared. They hadn't left or died of illness. They had been murdered by the very man who had vowed to love and protect them. Amelie was the first to recover. "We have to leave. Now. Right now. We gather whatever you need, we leave this castle, and we go straight to the authorities." But Marie, still in shock, had picked up the golden key from where it had fallen. To her horror, she discovered that the key was now stained with blood. blood that wouldn't wipe off no matter how hard she tried. The key seemed to be enchanted, permanently marking her disobedience. "He'll know," Marie whispered, her voice breaking. "When he returns, he'll see the blood on the key, and he'll know I opened the door. He'll kill me just like he killed them." Terror galvanized them into action. The three women ran through the castle, throwing Marie's essential belongings into bags. They were heading for the main gate when a servant, one of the few who had shown Marie any kindness, stopped them with urgent news. "My lady, a rider just arrived. Monsieur Bluebeard is returning today. He's only an hour away at most. He received word that you had visitors and he's rushing back. You must flee now." The women's blood ran cold. An hour was not enough time to reach safety, not nearly enough. The nearest town was hours away by carriage, and Bluebeard on horseback would catch them easily on the open road. Marie's mother made a quick decision. "Marie, go to the highest tower and watch for your brothers. I sent word to them yesterday asking them to visit. They're soldiers, both of them, and they were planning to arrive today or tomorrow. If you see them coming, signal to them that something is wrong. Amelie and I will try to delay Bluebeard when he arrives." Marie raced to the tower while her mother and sister prepared to face Bluebeard. When he arrived, his face was already dark with suspicion and anger. He dismounted and strode into the castle, calling for his wife. Marie's mother stepped forward, blocking his path with remarkable courage. "Monsieur, my daughter is unwell. Perhaps you should rest from your journey before." "Out of my way," Bluebeard snarled, pushing past her with such force that she nearly fell. He called for Marie again, his voice echoing through the castle halls with barely contained rage. Marie descended from the tower, her heart pounding with terror but her mind clear. She had seen the dust of approaching riders in the distance. It might be her brothers, but they were still far away. She needed to buy time. "Welcome home, husband," Marie said, keeping her voice as steady as she could. "I didn't expect you back so soon." "Give me the keys," Bluebeard demanded, holding out his hand. Marie's hand shook as she removed the key ring and placed it in his palm. Bluebeard examined each key carefully, and when he reached the small golden key, he held it up to the light. The bloodstain was clearly visible, dark and damning. "You opened the forbidden room," he said, his voice terrifyingly quiet. I did," Marie admitted, knowing that denial was pointless. "I needed to know the truth." "The truth?" Bluebeard laughed, a sound without humor or warmth. "Now you know the truth. You know what happens to wives who disobey me. You've seen your predecessors, and now you'll join them." He grabbed Marie's arm with brutal force, dragging her toward the stairs that led down to the basement chamber. Marie's mother and sister tried to intervene, but Bluebeard shoved them aside. He was strong and rage had made him dangerous. "Please," Marie pleaded, "not for mercy but for time. If you're going to kill me, grant me one last request. Allow me 10 minutes to pray and make my peace with God." Bluebeard paused. Some vestige of religious superstition made him unwilling to deny this request. 10 minutes, he snarled. "Pray in your chamber. I'll sharpen my blade. When I return, you'll join the others." Marie ran to her chamber, where Amelie was already at the window. "Do you see them?" Marie called desperately. "Do you see our brothers coming?" "Not yet," Amelie called back, though she lied. She could see riders approaching but wasn't certain who they were. "Keep him talking, keep him waiting. Just a few more minutes." The minutes crawled by with agonizing slowness. Marie could hear Bluebeard below, his footsteps growing closer. She called down again. "Sister, do you see them?" "I see dust on the road," Amelie called back, her voice strained. "It might be them." "Hold on, Marie. Hold on." Bluebeard's footsteps thundered up the stairs. The door burst open, and he stood there with murder in his eyes. "Your time is up. Come." But at that moment, the sound of horses' hooves clattered in the courtyard below, and voices called out. Marie's brothers, both soldiers, both trained fighters, both who had ridden hard when they received their mother's urgent message, burst into the castle with weapons drawn. "Where is our sister?" they demanded, their voices carrying through the halls. Bluebeard turned, realizing his situation had changed. He drew his sword, preparing to fight, but he was one man against 2 trained soldiers who were fighting to protect their sister. The battle was fierce but brief. Bluebeard, for all his cruelty toward defenseless women, was no match for opponents who could fight back. Within minutes, Bluebeard lay defeated. He was captured, bound, and taken to face justice for his crimes. Authorities searched the castle and found the evidence of his murders, the chamber of horror that Marie had discovered. The remains of his previous wives were finally given proper burials, and their families received answers about what had happened to their missing daughters. As for Marie, she was physically safe but emotionally scarred by her experience. She returned to her mother's home, where her family surrounded her with love and support as she healed from the trauma. She had learned a terrible lesson about the importance of trusting one's instincts, about recognizing warning signs, and about the danger of ignoring red flags simply because someone is wealthy or charming on the surface. "I should have listened to you," Marie told her mother and sister through tears. All the signs were there, the rumors, the missing wives, the controlling behavior, the coldness. "I saw all of it, but I talked myself into ignoring what I knew was true." Her mother held her close. "You survived, my darling. You were brave when it mattered most. And now you'll help other women learn from your experience." And Marie did exactly that. As she healed, she began speaking to young women in neighboring towns and villages, telling her story as a warning. She talked about the importance of heeding warning signs, of trusting intuition, of understanding that wealth and status don't make someone safe or good. She helped create networks where women could share information about dangerous men, protecting each other from predators who used charm and riches to mask their true natures. Bluebeard's vast wealth was seized by the crown. A portion was given to the families of his victims, and Marie used her share to establish a refuge for women fleeing dangerous situations, a place where they could find safety, support, and the resources to build new lives. Years later, Marie did eventually marry again, but this time to a good man who had proven his character through years of genuine friendship, who respected her independence and intelligence, who treated her as an equal partner rather than a possession, and who understood that her past trauma required patience, understanding, and unwavering support. The tale of Bluebeard became a cautionary story told throughout the land, passed down through generations. Mothers would tell it to their daughters, not to frighten them, but to prepare them. The moral was clear and important. The moral: trust your instincts and heed warning signs. When something feels wrong, when rumors persist, when behavior seems controlling or cold, when questions go unanswered, when past relationships ended mysteriously, pay attention to those feelings. Charm, wealth, and status are not guarantees of good character. True safety comes from genuine respect, transparency, and the freedom to question without fear. Curiosity is not a sin, but ignoring danger signals can be fatal. And most importantly, speak up, ask for help, and support others who may be in dangerous situations, because together we can protect each other from those who would do harm.